session. Thank you for tuning in. Today's session is going to be a lot of really cool ideas and focusing on one book specifically, Atomic Habits by James Clear. My name's Carlo, by the way, at Carlo V. Joseph on Instagram. Jess is going to be joining us here in a second. But today's focus is on this amazing book. It's a self-help book. And I just wanted to talk to everyone about how much this has influenced me and is influencing me still. I'm still reading it. And we're going to be focusing on motivation, self-care, and self-help today. And I think that this podcast is going to bring up a lot of questions and talk about a lot of things that I've discovered recently. And I really am excited to share that with you guys. And Ravindu and Hunyah, please feel free to interject or add in whenever you guys choose. So yeah, the book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's kind of blurred out here, but because of the background. But the very kind of first thing moving into things here is he has this whole concept of 1% changes, 1% growth. So the idea behind this is that, I know for me personally, when I think of setting a goal or creating or achieving an outcome, I think about it as I have to be 100% done that thing. I mean, especially if there's a deadline, right? But this concept takes that and kind of flips it on its head. So he has this idea of compounding. So bettering yourself by 1% each day. And it doesn't always have to necessarily be, just one thing. For example, right now, I'm actually doing Duolingo. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Duolingo, but I'm challenging myself to learn a little bit of Italian and a little bit of French every single day. So that's been my kind of 1% growth. And it's been interesting because I've been finding myself pushing to grow in multiple areas by 1%. Okay, I'm like, okay, what can I do that's 1%? How can I put at least 1% in that? And then I often find myself going even further as well. For example, today I had 4 assignments due. I said, how can I start? Not due today, but I have them due at the end of the week. And I said, how can I start? And it's just creating that little 1%. I can say, oh, I can do a note about this or a note about that. Oh, I can get this link for later. And then it kind of steamrolls. So this 1% changes concept, it really helps us make time our ally. And James Clear has this really great way throughout the book of letting the reader know that time is an ally. And if we can just think about growing 1% each day in whatever we're interested in, long term, this is going to set us up for huge success. He has this concept of outcomes are delayed, so we give up, and sticking with things and thinking of that long-term outcome or that long-term goal. So
have you heard of this saying Kaizen? Sorry to jump in there.
No, jump in.
Have you heard of the word Kaizen?
No, I haven't.
Right. So it's actually a Japanese saying. It's pretty much what he's saying here. It's actually just a little bit at a time. So a lot of Japanese people, I'm pretty sure it's a Japanese word, but a lot of them say Kaizen, which means you do a little bit at a time. And a little bit can lead to a lot later on. So 1% each day. It's almost the same meaning, but a different word.
Exactly right. Same concept. And I love that connection. Now, and I often find myself, or I used to find myself kind of overloaded with tasks. So let's say, and just things I wanted to do, right? So let's say if I wanted to do something as simple as clean my car that day, right? It seemed like this huge daunting task because I had to spend all this time doing it, as opposed to, oh, maybe I can just do a little bit here, start a little bit there, start vacuuming, and then things just steamroll, things just kind of fall into place. So the whole concept of these 1% changes, I mean, how are you actually going to measure that, right? It's never going to be just 1%, but think about it as 1%, and this can help you grow and achieve a lot, I feel like. So like I said, I've been putting these 1% changes in different aspects of my life and just kind of being oh, how can I improve 1% on my math skills, for example, right? teachers have to go through this math proficiency test at the end of their degree where they like, do a math test and see where their math levels are at, regardless of what you're teaching. So I was like, okay, how can I improve that? How can I do a 1% change on that? And for me, it was just like memorizing, doing times tables or doing long division or doing whatever it is, right? Exponents, right? And I'm like, how I'm going to improve that by 1% each day. So long term, I'm going to be in a much better place than when I was. Same thing for the Duolingo app that I'm trying now too. Again, I'm learning these different languages, just thinking of it as 1% each day. So I thought that was a really good concept to bring up. And yeah, I have this great quote from the book. This one is super interesting to me. This comes right from the book on page 20. It says, imagine that you have an ice cube sitting on the table in front of you. The room is cold and you can see your breath. It is currently 25 degrees. Ever so slowly, the room begins to heat up. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube is still sitting on the table in front of you. 29 degrees, 30, 31. Still, nothing has happened. Then, 32 degrees, the ice begins to melt. A 1 degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature, increases before it has unlocked a huge change. So that concept kind of blew me away, because I think it's really important to take away from this idea that even just improving by 1% each day long term, you're going to get to that mark or that temperature shift that's going to shift you and like shift your perspective on so many different things. And I found that quote to be pretty inspiring, so I had to save that there.
If you think about it, 1% a day in 365 days is 365%.
That's right.
That's a big improvement if you really think about it.
That's a huge improvement. Yeah.
I think like a lot of the times when we, want to make a change or we think about making a change, it turns out to be like such a big daunting task ahead of us, and it's like, you know what? We're better off not doing it anyway. Like, might as well, it seems like it's too much of like a mountain, but I think by, even 1% a day or even 0.5% a day, whatever it is, kind of starting out with that and then building on it, like eventually you will see those bad habits, as it says here, creep out, and then the good changes begin to come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love those takeaways. And for me, I feel like I deal with anxiety when it comes to deadlines, especially for like handing in assignments at school. So this kind of brings that anxiety down, where I can kind of minimize it and be like, I'm just going to do 1% today. I'm just going to do what I need to today. I'm going to do some notes here, some notes there, and prepare myself better. Right. And I also recently, I'm on motivational TikTok, as I've said before in many different podcasts, but something that came up on my For You page today was like, start the beginning of the week off extremely motivated, like hustle it out at the beginning of the week. So that way, by the end of the week, you can kind of just enjoy it. Like you have all of your stuff done. So for me personally, last week was a huge week for assignments, a lot of things to hand in. And then this week, a little less, but still pretty much on par of that assignment list that was coming at me. So I was like, okay, breaking it down 1%, what can I do here, right? So that was super, super helpful. Another great concept that he talks about is systems versus goals. So traditionally, and I even did this summer, I'm still a very big like goal setter, like goals, go after them, achieve them, yada, yada, yada. So he has this concept, James Clear, that this is direct from the book. Winners and losers have the same goals, right? And it's not to say that it's bad to lose. I actually think losing is a really good thing, because losing involves more learning. But achieving a goal is a momentary change, and goals restrict happiness, as in once I reach that goal or once I get to that place, then I'll be happy. And he likes to go through this system way of seeing things, where we're focusing on long-term progress and the process of it. And this is something that I related to as an actor, because I don't know if anyone has seen that iceberg example, but it's usually a picture of an iceberg that's sitting on top of the lake, right? And it's this tiny, 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 tiny little thing, right? And above it, you'll see outcome. So this is what people see. This is the outcome. And then there's the lake, and then there's the bottom of the iceberg, and it's just this huge, like massive chunk of ice. And that's where all the process work and all the knowledge, and that's where everything tends to sit, is like right in there. But nobody's seeing that. And what everybody's seeing is that outcome. So what he's doing is he's saying, focus on that big chunk, focus on all of that process, and let go of that idea and that concept, right? And temporary results versus changing the system of what causes those results. So goals often lead us to, yes, many positive things. I think you should still set
I was
goals,
gonna
but also
say about the system and goals. What I personally do is that for each week I set a number of tasks for every day what I do. So for
Right.
me, it's like, yeah, I have some goals that I'm working on currently, right? So the 1% change in the system. So what I do is I try to make sure I add a little bit of effort into each of my things. I add them in I try to incorporate them in my daily task, and somehow I try to make sure I achieve a certain number of the percentage of the thing that I'm looking for. So that's what I do. So I
Right.
do the whole system and goals thing. It's a progress that counts to get there.
Yeah, no, right. And I love that. That's a really great connection. Thank you, Hunyah. And I don't know about you guys, but I keep a journal where I write down my systems, and I write down my goals, and I write down things even up to my daily tasks. And I make sure that if I haven't checked something off, I'll make sure to check it off like as soon as I can, kind of thing. Like, I always have something I'm working towards. And I think that's the biggest takeaway with this. It's like, oh, when I achieve my goal, I'll be happy, and then that's it. I don't have to do anything, right? No, let's put that system into place, right? Let's keep that momentum going. Let's keep it moving forward. Let's look at other things, right? When I do finally learn Italian, let's go into French even more, right? I mean, it's all about keeping that momentum. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add on. I really like this saying, like system versus goals, and that quote of, winners and losers have the same goals. How I think of it is everyone has goals to achieve something big. One of the things I usually relate to is a lot of people are like, you know what, I want to, make a lot of money. I want to be very successful. Almost everybody says that, right? But most people don't have a system in place to achieve those goals, right? So that's how I think of it is, goals are good, but you need to have a system to make stuff happen, and you need to enjoy the process on its way, right? Not just focus on the end goal, because time goes by and you might not be happy at the end goal, right? You could be wasted a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think happiness plays a huge part in it, because we definitely feel like a big dopamine hit whenever we reach a goal, right? And I like to relate that to the runner's high. I don't know if any of you guys are runners, but I've been running for about 5-6 months now. Wasn't a huge runner before that, but I experienced like the runner's high, right? It's kind of like the same thing where you reach the end of your goal, you get to whatever it is, however many kilometers you need to get in order to get that high, and you get that hit of dopamine, and it's very, very temporary, right? And perhaps it's nice for a little while, but it shouldn't be like I'm chasing dopamine every time because I'm going after these goals, and that's why I'm going after these goals. So exactly like you said, right? It's about enjoying that process, and it's about enjoying the work behind it, and almost in some ways the struggle, like enjoying that, right? 100%. It's gonna do nothing but make you stronger, right? And relating it to lifting weights too, right? Like you have to struggle, you have to get that weight up, but then when you do, you're gonna get this goal of having bigger, larger muscles, right? Like it's just like, I don't know how else I could break it down, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think when you said, working on lifting weights, it reminds you of something, New Year's resolution. Everybody writes down, I want to go to the gym, right?
Yeah.
What happens like the first month of the gym? It's so packed. It's so busy.
Absolutely right? Packed.
It's crazy. Everyone's getting a gym membership. 3-4 months later, it's like none of those same people are there.
They're all gone.
Because the
It's so
reason,
funny you say that too, because I felt like I experienced that again in September, because I've been going to the gym pretty consistently throughout this year. And well, I mean, when you could for pandemic things and whatnot. But when the beginning of September first came around, all of the students came to the Good Life here at Queens, and it was just jam packed. Like there were lineups like all the way around the gym, just like super, super busy. You could never get a machine. And now it's approaching the end of the month, literally Tuesday, the 28th, and you can go in and, every now and then there's a line for when you have to book your spot, but it's not busy. Like all of those huge lines are gone. And it's exactly like you said, right? It's like they set these momentary goals and they don't put the systems in place, and then they're not at the gym anymore, right? Or perhaps they
100%.
found a better deal somewhere else. But
Actually, to connect to this in a way, like as an influencer, what I know is the way how I started. When I first started writing my reviews, no one knew me. But how I got my identity as what I am right now, like that was all through the different little reviews I did. And then from there, and then the outcome of it is now people approach to me every few days. So I think like that's something that we can also put in there as well. Like besides like fitness being one of them, it's like also like towards like if you're like working towards a goal, let's say in your career or somewhere, then I think that that's how it starts. Like it starts with doing a little bit, and then your ultimate goal is when you get noticed.
Yeah. I
I
think
wanna.
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. No, you can go for it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add too, I think a lot of the times why, people kind of give up throughout the process or don't fully use that entire time and kind of just want to see those results or reach their goal is because they're setting too unrealistic expectations. And I don't know how to phrase it properly. I shouldn't say too high of a goal, but something that you think is almost too too challenging to reach at the present moment. Like, for example, going back to the gym example, if you're, setting that goal, for example, to be at the gym 7 days a week for 2 hours, that's unrealistic because as the time goes by, if you are studying in school and you have all these assignments and stuff, it's hard to put that same time commitment. But I think if, you start out small with the goal of, okay, I want to make it to the gym 3 times a week, for example, and then slowly increase that day by day or week by week, then it's easier to stick to those goals when you're kind of, again, the 1% changes again, like
absolutely, yeah, this goes right back to the 1% change. And of course, like I keep saying it, it's not going to be like just 1%. Like there's no way of measuring that for everybody, but it's just thinking about it as a concept of like, oh, that 1%, I'm just going to put in 1% effort, dude. Like 1%. Like, can you do that? I think that's achievable for most people. And then exactly what you said, Jessenia, was a perfect idea relating to it. So and thank you, Hunyah, for introducing this next slide here, identity and behavior. It's a really cool concept because many people think of their outcomes and like the things that they've achieved as their identity, right? So James Clear in this book, he challenges the outcome to identity and identity to outcome systems and the systems of belief that we have put into ourselves here, right? Changing your systems will change who you are. And I mean, like, this can be pretty simple. I don't think these have to be like really crazy things. For me, it was like, I'm going to read more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put books that I bought beside my bed table at night. That's a system that I put in place that's going to help me reach my goal, right? And that system is something that works for me. Or even just like putting my phone across the room before I go to bed. So that way I'm not tempted to like scroll really late at night. And I'm not tempted to like be on TikTok. Cause like the TikTok swipe, I don't know for you guys, but like 15 minutes can go by so quick. Right? Like so quick. So for me, it's just like, put that away. What's that?
100%.
Like time stops. Like
time stops. Yeah.
You have no idea where the time goes, especially when
so
it's
addicting. Yeah. And I think that creating these systems can be as simple as that. Like just like doing little things or creating little spaces in your environment that can help you achieve what you want to achieve. And he has this really great quote too: the ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of our identity. That's super cool. And I know we've talked about this podcast before about my 75 hard program, but essentially what it was, 2 45-minute workouts a day that I completed for 75 days straight. And if you mess up, you go back to day one. And I did that over the summer. And I feel like I cannot, it's a habit that has stuck. And like it could be put with anything. Another, like the Duolingo thing, I'll go back to that, like learning a new language, putting 10 minutes aside each day and just like going through the app, doing little lessons. Like it's going to build and it's going to become a habit. Reading at the end of the night, read 10 pages of a nonfiction book, right? At the end, like 10 pages. And if you can't do that, 5 pages. Just build a habit. And then all of a sudden you're going to trick your brain into going, oh, I actually really enjoy this, right? Because we as human beings like to have systems. We like familiarity. We know what's good for us, but I think due to one, time constraints, and then also probably just like life, like things happen, right? We get pulled back to kind of go back to our old habits and our old ways that might not be so good for us. So putting these systems in place in terms of identity and behavior is a really cool concept. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this already, but like, I know for myself, the phone thing was a huge example of a system that I recognize within myself. Do you guys have any systems or anything else?
I can name a system that I think most of us do is when we wake up, we all go usually brush our teeth, and we usually do it with our right hand, right?
Yeah.
Or, we go wash our face. It's always like wake up, go to the washroom, and do something like that. One thing I've been trying to do recently is when I wake up, I would try to do like a gratitude journal, right? So like kind of write positive stuff. But as you said, it's hard to change the system, but if you can change the system, you can change kind of, who you are, your identity. So that's one system I noticed.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think even grabbing, the first thing I do in the morning is I grab my phone and I check all my messages even before I brush my teeth or get out of bed. So that's another thing. And for me, I know something that's, I'm looking to change is even like procrastinating and doing things at the last minute. And when it comes to assignments and stuff, I've always kind of been like that person, even in high school, where like I'll wait till the end and then like that adrenaline will kind of get me going to finish it. But I think, that's probably a system for me, but what I want to change is kind of, spreading that out over a longer period of time, because then it doesn't lead to, stress or anything at the end. So
that's actually a really interesting concept though, because we've been kind of discussing this in class. Learning how to be a teacher and how to assess students involves knowing when to assign students work. And I know for myself, I'm like exactly like that, Jessenia. Like I kind of wait until a point where I kind of get, what I like to use is the term healthy anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, okay, time's coming up, the assignment's coming up, the due date's coming up, let's knock it out. Let's really get going on it. And that adrenaline, like you said, pushes me into completing the assignment at a much better pace. So like that's a system that I have too. And I totally recognize that. And I think even just recognizing our systems as individuals really can help us improve on them in the long term too. So I'm gonna move on to another concept now. This was one that I found to be super interesting.
For me, it's just like it's cutting down something sweet and some junk food. That's the only thing that I want to change in my system. That's the hardest, because it's like related to diet, it's related to food. So that's like the most difficult one.
Right, and it's funny you say that too, because I was just gonna say, in this next slide, he used a really great example of like, I want to be versus I am already. So like the whole thing of like, oh, I'm not a healthy person, right? I don't eat healthy food. Like I need to get better at that. I need to get better at that. Try using the language as if you already were. No, I am a healthy person. Like I care about what I put into my body. So I am going to eat good food. Right? So like as if you're already there, as if you've already achieved it. So he kind of he has this idea of a cue, craving, response, and reward. So our cue would be like, oh, okay, like I recognize as an individual, I need to improve on my healthy eating habits. Okay, so I'm craving some unhealthy foods right now that are not so good with me. How am I going to respond to that? What's my response to that? Am I going to go back to my cue and then give in? Or am I going to continue on my path and I am a healthy person and then get my reward, which would be healthy body, healthy lifestyle, whatever it is, right? And I'm just relating this to healthy eating because of what the point that you brought up, Hunyah, but like this can be for anything, right? I mean, even for the homework thing that we were talking about as well, right? Like, I am someone who completes my assignment 4 days before it's due, right? Like, maybe I want.
That's a long time.
Maybe, right?
Say 4 hours.
I
Okay,
really used to do that a lot. I still remember. I have a habit of, even when it comes to work, I like to do my work before it's due. So I have the same habit.
Very good. You should
Love
rub
it.
that off on me, Hunyah.
You guys, so
Oh,
we have a question from
yeah, I was gonna say,
Karina.
let's address that.
So her question is, any tips on staying productive or developing a good schedule in general? So I can give my opinion first. I think really staying productive and, having a good schedule is, I feel like you have to, when you wake up in the morning, is you have to schedule your task, right? So this is something I do is, for example, if you're at school, if you have work, let's say you're in school, let's say you have an assignment due tomorrow. So maybe put 1 hour of the day, say, okay, from 9 to 11, I'm going to do studying and I'm going to finish that assignment. So that's what I would say is schedule times and make it exact. So, and you stick to that schedule.
Yeah,
Sure.
great.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was just going to mention, I think sometimes like what I do is, I also start out with a schedule at the beginning of the week and try to schedule, put everything down in one calendar and kind of see what I have to do. And then where in between can I find some spaces for a break or, some relaxation. But I think it's also important to remember that as much as we want to schedule, a lot of the times things come up unexpectedly, and sometimes having too much of a strict schedule too. And, I know some people will literally by the minute, plan stuff or even by the hour. You still want to ensure that there is some flexibility and some like leeway there for you or for other people, because, life's unexpected and things can come up at any moment. But I think, looking into some other productive methods to do your work or study, like, for example, I think there's this one called the Pomodoro Method where, you'll study for 30 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break, study for 30 minutes, 5-minute break. Then you study for an hour, you take a 20-minute break, study for 2 hours and a half an hour break. So there's a bunch of them, I think, out there now. But, if you need that kind of push, or you feel like you need that stability where there is someone almost, telling you what to do, for example, I think that's a good method or strategy, because you can put that timer on and it'll tell you when to start and stop and everything.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, that's a great point. And it makes me think of, I think a big thing, thank you for asking a question, Karina. A big thing in terms of developing a good schedule is routine and rituals. And I think that, like, for example, having a good morning routine to set you up for the entire day, no matter if that day looks differently than, the next day, whatever it might be, really kind of sets you up for the day to come. And I found that that's a really great thing I've been implementing in my life. And I actually have multiple calendars. I use the Google Calendar for all of my school and work related things, which is great because you can color code it and it's super pretty and it looks awesome, right? Jessenia is nodding, so I'm sure that she does it too. And then I have a daily list or like calendar that I write the night before, usually, of like things I know I need to get done if I have like an extremely long day. And then I have a calendar on a whiteboard where I write things like my personal things, like when I'm going to find time to relax, or when I'm going to find time to work out, or when I'm going to do my social things with friends. That stuff I'll write down. So I personally think keeping a little journal of your daily tasks and writing things down there is great. And then having differentiation and not having all of it necessarily in one place has helped me. Yeah. And in terms of staying productive, Karina, like, I think just like Jessenia said, in that kind of way of going about things is like knowing when to take your breaks. Like that's a huge part of it. Like knowing when to, when it's time to work, setting a little goal, sort of that study sesh or that work time, and then taking a break, like doing things that you need to do for yourself.
Yeah, I want to add something there. I was actually listening to a podcast last night, and it's about it's a business podcast, but it's talking about procrastination and really sticking to your plan. And one of the things that he said is, find a mentor or somebody to keep you accountable, right? For me, I have a lot of mentors in my life, and sometimes you can find someone that you can work with that will keep you accountable to do something. For example, maybe it can be like a family friend or your mom or your dad, or even if it's a close friend, you can say, hey, you know what, this is what I have to do. Can you keep me accountable for, the next week? And I feel like sometimes that has some impact because it feels like, okay, I need to get my work done because I have to be accountable.
Right.
For me,
Yeah.
it's Google Calendar that I normally use a lot for most of my tasks. Earlier, I did use those yearly calendars that come out like once a year, and like I had them on the fridge, and I usually like write my task in there. But now it's like I don't use it that much. I usually just like see my phone for all my tasks, and it usually has everything aligned in there, so I know where to go next once I'm done with my first task and go to the second one.
Perfect. So just moving forward here in our slides, we're going back to the point of immediate gratification. So this is a kind of like a universal concept, but it's a concept that comes up a lot in the book. And again, this is something that we're all used to when we post a picture on Instagram and get 10 likes, 12 likes, 20 likes, whatever it might be. Like we're getting that hit of dopamine on that app that's saying, oh, social. These people like me. These people like what I'm posting, right? It's great. But it's not really thinking about like the long term. I'm using the Instagram example, and I bet you there are people who definitely plan out their Instagrams, like what they're going to do next and like all of that kind of stuff, which is totally cool. But I think the point being here is that this idea and concept, going back to systems versus goals, right? Like we were talking about how you can put systems in your life in place that will help you achieve constant growth as opposed to just this immediate gratification. That's it. And I say that right now as my email for Duolingo came, and it was like, hey, are you ready to learn some more Italian today? Very funny. But it's interesting because I feel like it has to be a balance. It can't just be, oh, I got something done, so I get an instant hit of dopamine, and then I'm going to go back to my old habits and my old ways. It's like, oh, I got something done, and then recognizing, oh, what system did I put in place that helped me get that done, and like, how can I like continue to do that? How can I create a system for constant growth as opposed to just relying on that instant hit of dopamine when I do succeed, whenever it might be?
The way I see it, it's like, how you have a marketing plan for a product, right? I feel like that instant gratification kind of is aligned in there because it's like, how you work towards your first ad and second ad, and then eventually, let's say you have a commercial, right? So something like that, the way I see. And then, and then the way I think is like whenever like, it's like part of human nature that whenever you accomplish something, you want to figure out how you got to that point. So I think that's like something where we can like see as this, that how this gratification works.
Yeah, that's a great point, Hunyah. I think it can be related to almost anything, right? Like a sports game, right? Like, that goal happened, instant gratification for the team, right? Like, you did well, but like, okay, why and how? Like, what was the reason that you achieved the success there? And the whole point is that it was because of that system, right? Keeping that system in place, we're thinking of that long-term application. We're thinking long-term. And it's really interesting too, just like if I can kind of dive into like spirituality for a second here, we always tend to think about thinking too far ahead into the future. as a negative thing and to remain in the present moment. But I feel like this is kind of a weird in between where we have this concept of recognizing what I did in the present moment and what gave me that instant dopamine hit and like that gratification. And I'm being present in that moment, but I'm also continuing to set myself up for success because I am thinking, oh, I'm going to keep doing this. So like long term, I'll be good too. Right. I bring this up because I just recently did an assignment on the power of now by Eckhart Tolle. And he actually has a lot of cool concepts about remaining in the present moment and recognizing what's in front of you. Like an example he used was riding your bike. As a child, like we often tend to take in that experience, and we really enjoyed it. We enjoyed the process of learning how to ride a bike, and we enjoyed being on a bike and biking with our friends. And I feel like now as an adult, we just, oh yeah, I'm on a bike. I'm riding a bike. It's fine. Like I'm going to the store, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm going to wherever I need to go. I'm biking to school today, right? I'm biking to work. It's like we're not thinking about the actual thing anymore. We're thinking, oh, I'm just, headed somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Not the action of what we're doing. And this concept is the same. It's like recognizing what we need to do for constant growth. So I don't know. I find that super interesting. And it's something that I really am trying to implement now, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, I feel like I've just been steamrolling. I've been go with like a whole bunch of things. And it's like, take a second to like breathe and really like consider and enjoy where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I have a couple of things wanted to mention. So I totally agree, Carla, with what you were saying. And even going back to that bike example, I read somewhere where it was like, take everything and look at it through a child's eyes, because children are innocent, right? They always look for the good in things, and they, relish those small things that I feel like we take for granted. But a kid, for them, like riding a bike, getting ice cream, those things are everything. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And then also what this slide reminded me of was being in high school, and we actually learned in one of our classes about like the 4 levels of happiness. And the first one began with that instant gratification. You, for example, you do well in something, you want to reward yourself with a gift, and sure, that lasts for a little bit, but that's not your complete happiness. And then slowly you keep on increasing, and ultimately your final happiness is when you reach that purpose stage and that level where you're not only doing good and being, achieving things for yourself, but you're able to give back and do stuff for others. And when you have, I think, some type of purpose and fulfillment in your life, that's what kind of gives you the happiness that you want to achieve altogether.
Yeah, purpose and fulfillment. Those are two. Yes, good point. Very, very good point. I think that's really important to remember. I feel like we have a lot of striving to get that purpose right now in our social structure, but not a lot of people realize that, like, it's going to bring you that fulfillment. Yeah, that's a really, really lovely point. I love what you said there. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Another really cool idea, and something that I've been going with for quite some time, and we might have even discussed this a little bit in other podcasts, but this is where I got the concept of you versus you from. So here we can see 2 football players. They're the exact same. They're just wearing a different jersey or different colors. And I thought this was a cool idea because oftentimes and I've been talking to my personal life coach about this for quite some time, but we even discussed comparing yourself to other people in unhealthy ways in our last podcast, and how it's human nature to do that. And it's something that can't really be helped. We're going to do that kind of no matter what. I have been finding great success in comparing myself to myself, you versus you. I'm not competing with anyone that is outside of my little bubble right now. right? Like I am working inside here, right? Like I'm doing this for myself. There are other people who are out there achieving things, and I often think, or I often used to think, why can't I do that? Like, what is it that that person has that I don't have? Why am I not in his or her shoes, right? And I was so focused on them, I wasn't doing anything inside here to lift myself up. And the minute I turned that around on its head and I said, okay, fight your own demons, fight your own battles, like turn it around and fight yourself in some ways. And that was when I started to see real growth. That was when I started to make strength gains at the gym. That was when I started to get better at long distance running. That was when I started to get better at reading. I started to get better at my academics. And I'm still like, I feel like I'll always be building it up. I'll always be doing this. And I'll always be improving that inner circle within myself, so much so that the focus is just going to be on me. It's not going to be on anyone else outside, right? And when we do that, and we do that a lot through the use of social media. We've talked about this in our other podcasts. When we do that, results come easy. And I'll say this quote again, but when you're not fighting everything, things come easily to you. That was a quote that my coach said to me one day in a session. And I just thought, like, my mind was blown, right? I was kind of like, it's so simple. It's so easy to consider, but yet it was something I struggled with. Because I think in our society today, we kind of have to feel like, oh, I have to be on top. I have to be the best at this, the best at that. I have to beat this person, right? I have to beat up this person and compete with them on this level, right? It's like, no, like you are only ever competing with yourself. You should only ever be competing with yourself. Anyone else, A, does not care, right? Like you think they care. And B, it doesn't matter, right? And not to say they don't matter as people, but like to you, they shouldn't matter. What their goals and aspirations are, what they're going to achieve can be great, but what you can achieve can also be great. And I don't know, I think this is a concept that I'm going to continue to unlock different levels of as I level up or try to level up myself. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this or had a positive experience with this topic, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a really great thing that you said there. It's 100% true. We live in a world where everybody is trying to look at somebody else and compare, but in reality, the only person that matters to you is you and the person in front of the mirror, right? So one thing I heard is, if the person in front of the mirror doesn't make you happy, you got to work on yourself and improve yourself, right? So working on yourself is the number one key to becoming better, right? Not working thinking, it's somebody else's fault, right? Have you guys met those people that always blame someone else, where it's always somebody else's fault and they're not their fault, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, they're not putting any of the blame on themselves,
Exactly.
and they're not growing themselves because of that.
Yeah,
right.
And one thing I try to do is like, work on saying, it's probably my fault. I gotta get better, because it's not always other people. It's most of the time it's me, and I'm the only person I can change, right? So I love this you versus you. It's really great.
Yeah. You're the only one that's in charge of your thoughts and what you can achieve at the end of the day. You can't control anyone else but yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very simple and basic concept, but it's so easy to forget, and it's so helpful to just kind of remind yourself of once in a while, especially if you're, kind of like me right now, because I feel like I'm in this grind mode right now where I'm trying to level up myself in a bunch of different ways. And it's also super motivating to, number one, I talk about keeping a journal quite often on this podcast, but I think it's really important because I have like 6 journals going on right now, to be quite honest with you. But one of them's for fitness. And I'll look through 3 months back and I was like, okay, I was benching this weight 3 months ago. And now I've upped that by like 25 pounds. Like, holy, the amount of growth in terms of just competing with yourself is like so motivating, right? And when you do it when you're competing with other people like that, for example, like in a weight thing, right? It's not, doesn't have the same level of satisfaction, right? It feels kind of like worse to either be beating someone in a category or competing with someone like that. It feels kind of worse in a way, as opposed to just like actually beating yourself, like competing with yourself and like winning against yourself almost, right? So yeah, really cool concept that sparked a lot for me. So talking point here. What are some changes we can make in our everyday lives to implement these systems we discussed today? Struggle makes us stronger concept, rituals and routines. Yeah, so I can quickly go first. I'd like to develop, I think, a better nightly routine. I think I've got the morning routine down packed. I think that's at a good place for me. But I know for my nightly routine, like I think like I am someone who loves to use my technology before bed. And I don't think that's like the best thing for me. So I think implementing a system where I can like really get my technology out of even out of my room, to be quite honest with you, and into another room before I hit the hay and turn in for the night would be a system that I could put in place that would be really beneficial to my everyday life. What about you guys? Do you have any ideas or concepts for improvement?
I think I'm the same as you, where for me, I think I use a lot of technology before sleeping too, and I want to work on not using a lot of technology and not sleeping on my phone, not sleeping with my phone, like
Yeah,
on the side, and not like when I wake up. Most of the time, the first thing I do is, what are the notifications I get? And I remember
right.
listening to this podcast a while ago. They said sometimes as that happens and you get negative news, it affects your whole day, right? But instead, I want to
Totally.
kind of change that, where the first 30 minutes when I wake up and the first 30 minutes before I go to bed, maybe I read a book about, like something that can bring me up, like a self-care book, like Atomic Habits, Think and Grow
Mhm.
Rich. That's what I want to change, I think.
Love it.
Mm. Yeah, no, I love both of those guys. I think those are great, at least starting points. I always feel like as soon as you can recognize what you want to change, that's the first step, right? Acceptance is always the first step. So
Right.
I think for me is honestly, I don't know if I can pinpoint necessarily a certain routine or a ritual, but just balance in general. I think I've always been striving to
Mm.
create more of a balance in everything, whether it's academics, social life, whatever, going fitness, taking care of my health. I feel like sometimes I go through phases where I'm super focused on one thing and then let a couple of others kind of go to the back burner. Or for a few weeks, for example, if assignments start piling up, then I'll leave the other aspects of my life altogether, and I'm focused just there. So I think for me, I just want to kind of more maintain a system of balance where, every week can kind of almost feel the same and look the same. And it's not like one has to go from completely, super stressful to all of a sudden completely laid back. And I think that kind of is like a roller coaster sometimes for yourself, and it can put you in like a position where you're not always, mentally or emotionally feeling the best. But yeah, I think again that going back to the 1% change every single day, moving more towards a balance, and making sure that you check up on all the different aspects of your life, that's kind of the change that I'd like to make.
I love that. Yeah.
For me, it's the 1%, because for me, it's kind of like diet related. So I would definitely go for the 1%, is like cutting off junk food, like try to easily get into the habit of eating healthy. So I think that would be something.
And that's
Nice.
a 1% change that you can make, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna eat a little less junk food on this day, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
1%
hard to
less.
stop.
1%
It's hard
less.
to stop. That's the thing, because
One
junk
to-
food, like it's like an attraction. Eating when you see healthy food, it's like it doesn't attract you at all, right? So it's hard to pick between the two when it comes to eating.
But I
Yeah,
think it's also a mindset too when it comes to
Yeah.
that, right? It's about changing that mindset where healthy doesn't have to equal bad taste,
Bad.
for example, or I feel like we could do a whole nother session on this, but
no, but it's true. It's so true. Healthy doesn't have to mean bad.
Bad,
And I
right?
feel like even you begin to enjoy it more right?
Yeah,
Like,
healthy food can taste really good.
yeah, I mean, I have a really big sweet tooth, so like I like my like chocolates and sweets, as much as the next guy, but I've just found ways to kind of still have those things, but maybe I'll do like a Splenda instead of like regular sugar, or dark chocolate instead of regular chocolate. Like there's like healthier alternatives and like healthier options that are just as good, if not better, I would argue in some cases. I mean, like the level of flavors they have in protein powder nowadays, like protein powder ice cream exists, everybody, and it's really good. It's very good.
Why don't we ask our viewers if what's something they're working on, if there's any viewers on right now?
Yeah, if there is anybody, like definitely put something that they're working on right now. Because that's kind of where we're gonna end off today. So we'll just continue to have a little bit more discussion. But yeah, I think like building the rituals and routines in general in my life is something that I'd like to improve on more. And I think I have been doing that slowly. But I like, for example, do you guys, I know a lot of people that I've talked to and asked this question, they all say yes. Do you guys fall asleep to a show?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I really had those days. Like I did great in class and stuff, but it's like I'm really halfway sleepy. So that was the most difficult part, was paying attention. But luckily I got through that. So yeah, like I do that a lot. Like not around shows, but it's mostly towards like when I was a student.
Okay.
I'm not a big TV person, to be honest. I don't really watch shows.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I for me, like I think it's so interesting because it almost started as a joke, but then I began to think about it as something quite serious. And it was like, we all have our emotional support systems, right? So they come in different forms. I know for a close friend of mine, it's an iPad where she only watches TikToks on. And she calls it her emotional support iPad. And it's like with her everywhere she goes. If she has some free time and she just wants some downtime to relax, she's going to go on that. It's her emotional support iPad. She needs it. She feels comfortable with it, right? For me, it's watching The Office right before bed. And it's like, I recognize that might not be the healthiest of emotional support systems. My brain is overstimulated. Again, the whole thing of having technology present right before I go to bed, the blue light, I mean, we can go on and on and on, but like, yeah, I think for myself, it's improving that nightly routine and just trying to use less technology before bed, like putting that system in place. And I began to think about how I can do this in like so many different ways in my life. And I got excited about it. I was like, how can I maximize my personal space? So that way I'm like less, what's the word? Triggered to like fall back into certain patterns. And I think it's a really cool concept I never kind of considered before. Like just placing your books or maybe placing your instrument in a place next to a chair. So you know that, oh, I'm going to sit down here and not scroll on my phone. I'm going to sit down here and like practice my guitar for 10 minutes. So like, that's what I did. Like I put my chair and my guitar right beside each other. And now it's what I've been doing. Like, it's also about how you like set up and like maximize your space. Same thing goes for your workspace too. That's another cool concept that I think I've been considering and thinking about for quite some time now. I have a bunch of different workspaces. Sometimes I find I work better in a mess. Sometimes I find I work better when there's organization. So yeah.
For me, if you talk about shows that I just like watch, like sometimes like if I need for emotional support or anything, or for just to relax, that's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's really that show all the way, because there's like it's comedy, it makes you relax. So in my opinion, if you watch like something that's like a light comedy, it's always good for you, other than watching something serious and then feeling even much worse. So there's a difference in there in what you watch too.
Right. No, of course. And that's another one, Hunyah, too. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is another one of those shows that you can kind of just put on in the background and relax, like it's so easy to watch. You begin to know the characters really well. I kind of used to think of Friends as being in the same boat as that, to be quite honest with you. So like I was like rotating between those three shows for quite some time before bed.
I actually read once they're under the same production company. All these three shows they're under NBC. I actually read that once. Friends, Office, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah,
Surprising.
yeah, I know Brooklyn
also
Nine-Nine and The
Superstore.
Office were. Oh,
Yeah.
Superstore. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
that's
that's also
another
one of them.
good one. And we could talk about shows. But yeah, going back to the point of today, right? I think it's like I never really considered the use of systems versus goals. It's not something I spent a lot of time thinking about. I was like, okay, goal setting. Yes, of course. Write it down, get it done. It feels great to check it off. And it does. Like, it feels awesome to check something off. We were talking about that instant dopamine hit, right? Like it's really good, really, really good feeling. There's no feeling that beats it almost. But what's the use if you're gonna fall back on your old habits?
For
Yeah,
sure.
I've learned to enjoy the struggle, I think. And I think that's a big
Yeah.
part of
Yeah,
it too.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you guys remember that song. It was popular many years ago. I think I was in grade 1 or 2, but by Miley Cyrus, The Climb.
Let's
like,
go. Yes.
Yeah, that song is a perfect representation of this whole, I feel like, session, that it's not about the end goal all the time. It's about that whole, the struggles, the process to get there, because that's when you're learning the most,
Mhm.
right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what just triggered my memory of that
Mhm.
song. So
Oh, that's a great point. And even for me being in teachers college right now and learning how to assess students, it's literally exactly what you said. It's not about this end process. It's not about how much you can put down on a test and how many answers you can get right. It's like what you did to get there. It's the knowledge and experience that you've earned and learned to be at the point that you're at where you feel confident enough to take that test, whatever it might be. I'm hopefully going to be a drama and music teacher, so hopefully I don't have to give my students traditional tests. But it's super interesting how once I've implemented these changes into my life, how I can connect it to so many different things. It's all about that process. Yeah, it's all about the climb. I love that. Perfect. I had the hugest crush on Miley Cyrus as a kid, so.
I remember dressing up for her for Halloween for like 5 years straight.
Oh my gosh, the best. Hannah
Yeah.
Montana, I loved it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, very cool. Once again, the book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's actually like a number one New York Times bestseller. So would recommend. It's been a great read for me. I'm reading through it again just to kind of be inspired by a lot of the things that are put in the book. I've been quoting it like all week, I feel like, and I was super excited to do this podcast. So thank you, team, for letting me take the lead on this one and talk about my motivation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, chat, for asking your questions. A great point that Anu made was enjoying the process is more important than reaching the goal destination. It's the ups and downs during the journey which makes the destination success and worthwhile. Great. Love it. I love that point. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Our socials are there. Please follow and subscribe and like. And yeah, once again, I'm Carlo.
I'm Ravinder.
Cynthia.
Hi, Hunyah.
And yeah, we'll leave you there for today. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you on Thursday.
Bye.